Welcome out there. My name is Laolu Akande and you are on to Inside Sources. But first, here is my take for the week entitled Reflections on Democracy Day. This week we are celebrating the June 12th Democracy Day, a more inspiring date than May 29 in our history and in our national aspirations. It is a commemoration of 25 straight years of uninterrupted civilian government. This is by far not a little achievement. But let's reflect on some of these issues. From Obasanjo to Yar'Adua, Jonathan to Buhari, and then Tinubu, we have seen 5 leaders at the national saddle since after 1999. President Olusegun Obasanjo actually recorded the most significant successes so far between 1999 and 2007, in my view. But his major undoing was the chaotic transition he emplaced with his do-or-die 2007 presidential election mantra after the abortive third-term saga. Today, Baba Olusegun Obasanjo is lamenting that we need a homegrown form of government, but is unwilling to concede that when he had the opportunity to show example, specifically in terms of political leadership, he did not. Following Obasanjo was President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, 2007 to 2010. Yar'Adua was forthright and he seemed very decisive, but he died before he could get anything done on an enduring manner. May his memory remain blessed. His successor, President Goodluck Jonathan, 2010 to 2015, attempted quite well, but couldn't rise to the occasion in terms of the diligence required for statecraft at that level, and was removed in the first electoral victory of an opposition party in Nigeria's federal government. But to his credit, Jonathan bequeathed to us as a nation the gift of a true Democrat that he was, and now is a notable international statesman. Enter President Muhammadu Buhari, the man who captured the popular imagination of the Nigerian people for change in 2015. He led for 8 years between 2015 and 2023, but even some of his own party chieftains are not convinced that he delivered on the promise of change when he left power last year. And now we have President Tinubu in the saddle. The president spoke on Wednesday, and for the first time in the presidential speech, we had a fairly longer listing of some of the national heroes in the quest for democracy since after the June 12, 1993 presidential election, which was the freest and the fairest in our political history. However, the hardship in the land is palpable, and it is an indication, Mr. President, that you must truly and urgently reconsider some of your actions and the style of your administration so far, especially regarding coherence and coordination. President Tinubu still has 3 more years, and it is now his lot. He now carries the burden to sort Nigeria out and deliver the democracy dividend that no one since 1999 has been able as president to deliver. Let us pray that President Tinubu will not fail. Finally, as I begin to conclude, there are a few other observations on our quest for democracy since 1999. Part of our national malaise as a people is that there has not been a sufficient reckoning for those who contributed to our current unflattering situation as a nation, especially those who have done wrong or evil against our commonwealth as a people. I mean that there hasn't been any consequence against many of them. So there is no deterrence for those who are coming behind them. We have to speak out against this trend of impunity that is robbing us of the righteousness which exalts a nation. Also, one of the more damaging features of the last 25 years is the rise of many tyrannical state governors. 3 things define that tyranny, mostly. Number 1, the robbing of the local government of their finances. Number 2, the damage of the independence of state legislators. And number 3, the blatant imposition of their successors as if they are indeed emperors. As a people, we need to speak out more against this tyranny and even speak out more stridently. And finally, our political leaders must hurriedly learn a quick lesson that emotional intelligence is key and that demonstrating sensitivity to the plight of the mass of the Nigerian people is critical. Elected political leaders and top government officials should not stand aloof or exhibit lifestyles that doesn't align with the mood of the nation. After all, we are a democracy. I believe that democracy will flourish more and more in Nigeria and in our time. And there you have my take for the week. Today, we are hosting somebody who stood for democracy even though he was a military general in 1993 as we commemorate the Democracy Day celebrations. We are going to be having General Ishola Williams, who resigned from the military in 1993 after the June 12 elections were annulled. He stood on the side of history and is our guest today. Inside Sources will be right back. Welcome back to Inside Sources. Today, as we continue our conversation on the future of Nigeria, we have as our guest a formidable retired Nigerian general who was also the head of the Transparency International Group in Nigeria. I'd like to welcome General Ishola Williams. General, you are welcome to Inside Sources.
Okay, I hope I'm an insider.
Exactly. So I wanted you to give us your perspective that if you were to make some kind of assessment today on our journey as a nation, do you think Nigeria is going towards that greatness that many of us believe is Nigeria's destiny? General.
No, I think we are like, a country is like a human being too. You compete to be able to see whether you are making progress or you are not making progress. And when you look at the case of Nigeria and you compare Nigeria from, say, 1960 to 1966, and from 1966 to up to today,
yes,
you could see a lot of difference. Within that period, there was a sense of direction.
Between 60 and 66, you mean?
The people who were in charge of governance had a strategy of where they wanted each region to be within the Federation of Nigeria. Okay.
Just to be clear, General, you're talking about 1960 and 1966.
Yes.
Okay.
So you find Awolowo in the Western region. Western region was lucky to have a visionary like him. And his legacies are still there, obviously. So, Okpara in the east.
Okay.
His legacies are still there. Sadana
in the north.
In the north. One thing was very clear about them. They didn't get into governance to chop. They went into governance because they want to serve the people and leave a legacy that during their period they served. And of course, when they died and so on, everybody saw that that was what they were working towards. One interesting thing about them was also too, they built political parties.
Okay.
And if you have bad political parties in any democratic system, you can never have good governance. Because we do not take primary election seriously in Nigeria. And in a good country, primary election is very, very important. Because of the role political parties play in any democratic system. Okay, we do not. Even in dictatorship, political parties is still producing the leaders who run the governance.
When it's a one-party state.
Yes. So, what you have then found out now is that, and it's a very serious problem, is that compared to that period that I was talking about, we have no political parties in Nigeria. Because, like they say, in some parts of Africa, or in Liberia, you have what they call flag bearers, who are the so-called leaders, and they are leaders because they have money, not because they have character.
Interesting.
Not because they have character. So, our political parties do not have leaders. They have characterless people who have money and take money represent leadership. And then they buy the followership, who are also, let them forgive me, irresponsible with no sense of obligation. Because leaders don't drop from heaven. I've never seen any leader drop from heaven. Leaders come from the followership. And therefore, if followership choose a leader, and the leader is a kleptocrat, and it's a crook, whose fault is that? It is because the followers are irresponsible. It is because the followers are not fulfilling their obligation. And people will tell me, oh, you know, the followers are poor and things like that. Poverty is a choice, I'm telling you. You know what I'm saying? So,
yes.
And there are some people who are poor, but make sure that their children must go to school.
Many.
And must become something in their lives. And they tell their children, we don't want you to be in this position like us. And there are so many examples all over the world, not only in Nigeria.
True.
Secondly, too, why poverty is a choice is this. Human beings are selfish people. Human beings are selfish people. Are not only selfish, they are greedy. The Creator has created a world in which there's enough for everybody. A good country is like Denmark, Norway, Finland, in the Nordic countries.
Right.
Why? The gap between the rich and the poor is deliberately reduced by taxes to take care of those who are not as fortunate as those who are rich. But everybody gets an equal chance. So you have equity, not equality. So any country that looks for equity, not equality, that country will have selfless leaders. But then you have a code that guides the followership and leadership. If that code is corruption prone, like the 1999 Constitution, that Constitution is corruption prone. And why is it corruption prone? Immunity is equivalent to impunity. So any constitution that has impunity, immunity, you are creating a situation of impunity.
Well, okay.
Because you say, you bring a crook into government, and you say, oh, this crook, because he has come into government, he has become a saint. So anything he does, leave him until he leaves. And what then happens? The governors become kleptocrats. Okay? Demigods in their state, approve any amount of money they like. Nobody audits them. And if you ask accountants will tell you that everybody is auditable except God. But not in Nigeria.
Okay, sir. You know, so I mean,
so
quite a lot.
The period, what has been going on since 1966 has not been good for Nigeria. And therefore, has really disrupted the progress you ought to have made. By now, we should have been competing with South Africa in terms of infrastructure, industries, and so on, because we have the brain power. We have the brain power. But unfortunately, so you can now see a recent country like Rwanda. See what Rwanda is doing.
Interesting. Thank you, General. I mean, quite a lot to unpack from your opening comments. And, you know, let's try to see how much of it we can do. So your position is that up until 1966, we had visionary leadership, you know, people that at the end of their lives, we all could say, even if we don't agree with their politics, we could say that these are people that actually had a public interest at heart, people who wanted to serve. Now, but my next question to you is that it was the military that terminated that adventure in 1966. How do you respond to that? And I know your antecedent, but I'll let you.
Yet,
yeah.
I believe really that the military was wrong at that particular time. But the interesting thing also about irresponsible followership is that look at every country in Africa.
Yes.
Whenever the military takes over, people rejoice. People go into the street and rejoice. Nobody has been able to ask that question. Why do people rejoice when the military comes into power? And it's because basically of what I'm talking about. Because the followers are irresponsible and they choose the wrong leaders. But the wrong leaders too take advantage of the responsibility of followership and refusal to be obliged to make sure that the leader is accountable.
So, General, the point that you seem to be making here is that the people, you know, the followers, if you can use that term, they kind of get the type of leadership that they deserve or produce. That seems to be your point.
Yes.
That followers have a duty and responsibility for the kind of leadership that emerges in a society.
Correct.
But my question, General, is what is the responsibility of leadership regardless? You know, why that point is true, but I mean, don't we also expect leaders to also do the right things and lead the people out of their own challenges?
You use one important word, expect. Who is expecting? The followers. And what are they expecting? And did they tell the leader before choosing him, if we choose you, this is what we are expecting of?
Well,
we expect you to fulfill these expectations. And if you don't, we'll recall you. Do they tell the leaders? No. What has happened in the case of Nigeria is that just throw money about. Money stop expectations being made by the followers. So
there is some kind of social contract.
Yes.
Because you have a constitution, and the constitution dictates, as a matter of fact, stipulates what it is that the responsibilities of elected public officials ought to be.
Yes, that is why there's what you call accountability. Accountable to who? To the followers. So if the followers are not asking for accountability, like Udume said, then what? So the point is this, is that what Udume is trying to say is this. People are electing me because they expect me to do chop and less chop. That system in Nigeria. Nigeria, the ideology is chop and less chop, and your economic system is trickle down. So I steal some money as a tech bureaucrat in government. I give to my sister, my cousin, my friends. The villager comes and said, I want to pay school fees and things like that. Instead of giving scholarship, you give me some money and so. You are operating a trickle-down economy. Okay?
Yes.
And you're operating a chop and less chop ideology. Period. That's what's operating in Nigeria. That's what's operating in Nigeria. So how can you be talking about a constitution is a piece of paper, theoretical?
Yes.
I am telling you in practice, because how many people understand what the constitution says about leadership? Why do they even care? Who is telling them? What we shout about is this. Have you ever come across any NGO that says it's Center for Human Rights and Human Responsibilities? Have you ever come across one?
Well, there are several human rights organizations.
Yes, you always come across.
Yes.
You go to universities, Center for Leadership and Human Rights. No Center for Followership, no Center for Followership. There are some few NGOs on governance and so on. Most of the time, what are they talking about? Talking about leaders, not the followers. But like we know, if you are going to become president of Nigeria, today you're a follower. You can become the president of Nigeria tomorrow. If you win New York lottery of $1 billion, and you want to spend about, after paying 300 million for tax there, and then you want to spend about 3 million for election in Nigeria, you did say. So when people spend money to buy people's vote at primary elections, what do you expect at secondary election? We have seen videos of polling agents. They just hand over money and people go and vote. How do you expect to get good leadership in that one? How do you expect? The leadership, the followership of Nigeria have the greatest responsibility.
Okay, so in your view, therefore, General Williams, what is the way out? How do we get out of this?
I was just telling you that I've been looking for people who can say, let us organize a conference on followership, responsibilities, and obligations. People have been dodging. I can send you the concept paper. People have been dodging.
So what would that? I mean, can you talk about it?
It is responsibilities of NGOs or community-based organizations to start talking about followership responsibilities to get good governance. It is not happening. What you spend time on is voter go and register, go and vote, and things like that. No, the responsibility and obligations. If they want to get good accountability, if I'm a leader and nobody's asking me to account, but just asking me for money, that's what Tinubu is saying. Yeah. Nobody's asking him for accountability. We read a lot of things in newspaper. Pardon in the Senate, and people forget one thing. When you start a bad habit,
yes,
it becomes a culture.
Yeah. If you don't stop it on time.
It's becoming a culture in Nigeria now. Pardon. Two, where in the world, even in dictatorship, people don't know what their senators and members of the House of Reps who represent them and as emolument, allowances, and things like that. Till today, I've never seen any publication from the Senate or House of Reps to state that this is what we earn. To state that this is what we earn.
But we have a fair idea.
What is the fair idea? Let them come out openly. Which fair idea? And secondly, too, you haven't seen some of the reports of ICPC about constituency project? Yeah. You are in the presidency. You see oh no, baby. You come back. I beg you. It's a sad story.
It is a sad story. Now, but I wanted us to focus on that your idea about the responsibility of followers.
Yes.
I want you to talk a little
an
bit
obligation, more. Not to responsibility.
Responsibility and obligation. Can you just give us a summary?
And you use the word duty.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, an expectation.
Yes.
So can you give us a summary, what you have in mind, or regarding that?
Now, there are a few cases. I remember one time in Niger State, they conducted an election in local government. It was rigged and everything.
In Niger State?
Now, when they brought out the new chairman of local government, people protested that they must conduct a new election. Of course, they didn't allow that local government to occupy the office for one day. The same thing in Akwa Ibom. It happened too. That is when people say, no, we're not going to agree. That is followership, responsibility, and obligation. That if the person they want is not given to them, they have the option. They have the option. You don't need to create a revolution or anything like that, because even in a revolution, a group of people will come again and become dictators. So what our NGOs need to do is just to find a way we need to educate people about their responsibilities and obligations. That is the primary. So all these Center for Leadership, Human Rights, and things like that. And we should introduce a Bill of Responsibilities and Obligations into our Constitution.
That will be what we expect followers to do.
Yes, and not only leaders, because a leader does not drop from heaven. It's not created. And it is from the people, especially for politics, that people come up and say. The other interesting thing is this: is that you can stay in New York and become the governor for your state if you have the right godfather and the distinct. And the new bad habit is governors choosing their replacement.
So the president has spent 1 year in office. What will be your comments on what has happened? What has he been able to do? What does he seem likely to be able to achieve in your own perspective?
I do feel sorry for anybody who is the president of Nigeria. First of all, what to discover is that we have got to a situation now in Nigeria in which, that's why I was saying that we have to find a way to stop it becoming a culture. 90% of the people who get into government wants to make money, not to serve the people. So, if they have a situation in which you have a president who says, okay, I am clean, and I'm going to run a clean government. In Nigeria, that president will not succeed. That president will not succeed. Because a president can take a decision. It may not be implemented. How will he know?
But that's why he has advisors, aides working with him, and ministers.
Most of those advisors, I remember one or two that I've met said, they spent 4 years, they never saw the president in this Nigeria.
Yeah, but there are advisors and aides and ministers who will be seeing him on a daily basis.
Because the people, even the president themselves, do not even understand why special advisors are appointed. Why they are appointed is this. You have a minister who is not an expert.
Right.
As in charge of a ministry. PAMSEC too is also not an expert. Because the system we have in Nigeria is this is that. They can post a medical doctor to become the Minister of Interior. I've seen a doctor who is a director at Ministry of Defense, not director of health of Ministry of Defense, doing another job completely. Okay. So you then need a special advisor who is a technical expert, grounded in both theory and practice of his profession or our profession. Now, when they bring papers to the president or to the executive committee meeting,
right,
1 month or so must be given before you bring that paper. That special advisor will study the report from his own technical knowledge.
Yeah.
And we write a brief for the president, giving the pros and cons of that particular proposal. Now, the president will call the minister and sit down with the SSA to say, Mr. Minister, see what my expert is saying. Now, the minister too would have brought his own expert from his ministry. Okay. The expert from ministry, the SSA, and the minister, they look at the proposal. Here, what I've discovered is this, is that once you can put the proposal together, convince your other ministers that I'm bringing this thing to the
Federal Executive Council.
Support me, oh.
Yes.
That's it. Nobody reads any brief from the SSAs. And the SSAs too do not take their job seriously. It's just to give them a job for some few years and they move on. The only person who can be saying is working very hard is the one that liaison between the National Assembly and the executive to make sure that bills are passed or whatever executive bills and things like that. But that's the only type that works. So you then say that because that process is not gone through, by the time they start implementing, there are so many faults and gaps and so on. And there are some that are awarded, like the Lagos Calabar Road, for example.
Yeah.
They destroy so many things. Now they come back to say, that's what the SSAs are there for. Technical expertise and experience. You don't appoint a young person and things like that. You appoint people in their 50s who have spent at least 20, 25 years in that particular profession working. That's what the SSAs are for. And they are technical people. They are not political party members. They are not political party members, you know. So what has happened is that I remember somebody talking about don't bring politics into this, don't bring politics into that. Unfortunately, we live in the world of politics.
Yeah.
That's why you have what you call political economy.
Yes.
So no matter how smart an economist is, there must still be a political decision
to be taken
over him. Therefore, we must take political economy very seriously. All right. Yeah. But that's not what's happening. And the second thing is that, you know, sometimes I don't watch television usually, but sometimes I listen to the young people who do the analysis about the economic system. And I also remember listening to CNN doing economic analysis. I don't find any difference. So what you then discover is that they are using the analytical framework of a European economic system or American economic system to analyze the Nigerian economic system. Confusion. Because they are talking jargon, they don't even understand, with apologies to them. And what we don't understand is this, that unless there's an economic transformation of the political principles of the Western world and sort of adapt it to what we want to have from the practices over the past 60 years, like the Asians have done. Asians have designed their own economic system. That's why they are catching up with the West. And they are not beggars like us. We beg. You really see an Asian president flying all over the world and say, I'm looking for foreign direct investment. Very rare. If you have good condition, why do people go to New York and go to Times Square?
From all over the world.
Right. If you have some good thing in your country, people will come. You don't need to spend money on tourism. People will come. This governance is very simple, you know. It's very simple.
So what do you think has to be done? Because you know we are doing quite a lot of very critical reviews. Where is the hope?
In every country
where
in
is
the
the
world,
redemption?
In every country in the world, there are some good people. The advantage of presidential system is this: is that the president can choose anybody, any Nigerian, living here, living abroad. And Obasanjo did that. With some people he selected, some ministers he selected from people. Take Professor Pate from the Ministry of Health.
Yeah. Well, that's President Tinubu.
He's now back now.
Yeah.
Okay. There are people like that all over the world. There are people like that in Nigeria. Some people know them, but they make sure, if this man comes here, we will not chop. He won't chop. He won't allow us to chop. That's a statement. But those are the sort of people that you are looking for. About who people are making money from all this subsidy.
Yes.
And it's still happening. Because IMF is saying that subsidy is still on. I've read newspaper that says that if they want to sell the true price for fuel, PMS, is 1,000 naira. So if you are selling it now for 700, 650 to 700, who is subsidizing the remaining 300? Government are known for telling lies. But by telling lies, you complicate issues. You complicate issues for telling lies. And people take advantage of those lies to cheat the poor. And in a country where gap between the rich and the poor is increasing, and you are talking about poverty alleviation, it's a waste of time. It's a waste of time. United States is discovering that now. And that is why they are introducing some social, system. Even in the United States, they have to say, oh, we don't want to be like Nordic countries. They are doing that right now. They are doing that right now.
Okay, General, let's shift along as we begin to move closer to the end of our conversation. There's a lot of insecurity in the country. I mean, you are a retired Major General.
You mean about security?
Yes.
Whether for police or the military, that's what we call doctrine, operational tactics, and tactics. If you have been doing something for the past 10 years and it's not working, you change your doctrine. Your doctrine will now determine your operational tactics, and then your tactics at lower level.
What's the difference between operational tactics and tactics at lower level?
The point about tactics, about doctrine is this. Tactics tell you what you must do to be able to defeat the threat.
Okay.
Operational tactics teaches you how do you do that.
Okay.
And then the tactics at the below, do it. You see the difference?
Right.
Okay. Now, at the doctrinal level, you need some strategic thinking. Because you are envisaging a scenario in which there's a threat and you must deal with it. And then come out of how you are going to deal with it. And then you pass it on down to people. I've been telling people that if you don't change the doctrine and the tactics, we'll never be able to deal with the problem. That's number one. Number two, the structure is completely outdated. But the police will never agree. Now, what are they were talking about?
The structure of the police is what you mean?
Of the police.
Okay.
Not only police, I come to the military later. What people have been talking about, state police, this police, state police. Now, people don't understand the difference between what you call public safety, which you call law and order, and terrorism and counterinsurgency. In Africa, there's no terrorism. Yes, sir. What you have in Africa is public safety, including Nigeria. And what do I mean by that? Armed robbery, kidnapping, abducting, and things like that. Terrorism is a part and parcel of tactics. The man who abducts or robs or does something like that does not want to take over the state. Insurgents want to take over the state. And that's why ASWAP and Boko Haram have some areas they control in Borno State. That's insurgency. They want to take over the state. Okay. Now, police is supposed to be in charge of public safety. Civil defense in charge of emergencies and disasters. Okay. Road safety in charge of highway traffic rules so that people don't kill themselves. Either through accident or if they want to commit suicide. So, these jobs are different. So when you take the case of the police, what do you need to do? Public safety starts from bottom up. Because if you prevent crime from the communities, and the communities are safe, your local government is safe.
Yeah.
If your local government is safe, your state is safe. And if the state are safe, Nigeria is safe. bottom up. That's why you need the state police. That's why you need local government police. You get that now?
Yes.
Okay. Because where do they kidnap people? Isn't it from communities? Okay. Now, if you then do that, if there's any disasters and emergency, you have the civil defense who take care of it. What you then need to do now is that. You need to create structures that will back up the local and the state police. What structure do you need? First of all, criminal. So you need to create, you scrap the present Nigeria police, you scrap it, and create crime intelligence and criminal agency. Okay. What do? They will act like FBI. How the FBI support the state police in the United States,
yes,
and town police and local government police, you create them as an FBI. Although DSS is confusing his own job, but leave DSS alone. When you then create that agency now, right, you appoint a DG. The second one, you create a paramilitary police. Now, people tend to forget that the mobile police was created as a paramilitary police to be separate on its own. But the police took it. Like they are begging now that
they want to take
road safety should join them. Because the IG now becomes, everybody wants to become a god. All right, which is not good for the public. Now, you then have a paramilitary police, so you just move the paramilitary police as a separate agency of its own. Now, what's so interesting about that is that in the French area, they call them the gendarmerie.
Yes.
Okay. So, and what happens is this, all the officers of gendarmerie or paramilitary police will be trained in defense academy. Why? Because when there is counter-insurgency, they are the first people that insurgents will come across. If they cannot solve the problem, take them. Two, if there's a lot of violence through armed robbery and things like that, that the state police cannot handle, they come in, the paramilitary police. Three, international law does not allow the military to be at the border.
Yeah.
It allows your paramilitary police to be at the border in case of any incursion.
Yeah.
So they do that. Then you create a border agency. You fuse immigration and the customs together to form a border. That's what they've done in most parts of the world now, to form a border agency. Right. Okay. And they look after your borders. With the support of the paramilitary police, if anybody then crosses with force, they've declared a war on Nigeria. But who will declare a war in Nigeria? Is it Benin or Niger? Who would go to declare war in Nigeria? So as a problem, it's internal. So with a good paramilitary police, border agencies, you don't need the military. The military can now concentrate on the Northeast. Now, what I've also discovered over this year is that we create agencies in order to offer employment. Not because we want them to be functional. It's just to put as many people as possible into jobs. And that's a mistake. In that public safety sector, you need functionality, not mass. Okay. Now, why doctrine and bishop that's important is that once you know how to fight, how you are going to fight, and to fight, it will determine the sort of structure, security architecture you need. It will determine the number of people that you need. It will determine the equipments you need to be able to fight with to make you win. You see how the whole thing works out?
Yeah.
It's simple. It's simple. But when you go with chop and less chop and things like that, I look at Nigeria and I said, oh no. And my sadness is this, is that I am 80 years old. I don't know how long I have left more, but it's not getting better.
Interesting. Very, very useful insights. I wanted to ask you about, as we begin to conclude, about your experience as a Army general, I recall that you left the military in 1993 when General Abacha took over from Shoneko. And I also recall that you were one of the officers that supported the June 12th in 1993, the same year. Please, can you tell us, for the purposes of history, General Ishola Williams, what actually happened?
No, very, very simple. No. I got into the academy in 1964. 1966, the coup happened. Okay. And Civil War came up, and we had to pass out from the academy and went into Civil War. And after the Civil War, I reflected and I asked myself, well, because I survived so many things during the Civil War that maybe that's why I'm living so long now. That I did ask myself, why did we fight this war really? I just couldn't find any cogent reason, except that two lieutenant colonels, one was smart, the other one was not too smart, got us into this situation. One was prepared, ambitious, politically ambitious. The other one was just a military officer who was, following a career, and that's all. Okay, got us into this war. And thank God that there were some pump sex at that time.
Some what?
Pump sex at that time.
Yes.
Who were the ultra pump sex? Who knew what was going on? I managed to convince the military that the steps we have taken in Aburi is not good for Nigeria. But then what happened was that I expected at that time that after General Ironsi's death, which also was unnecessary because they could easily remove him. But what people did not forget, what people do not know, or maybe they know, and so not to care about it, was that what was the role of the president of Nigeria at that time in that coup?
The president as
yes, Dr. Azikwe. And when I read Colonial Office report about his role, and he disappeared, they couldn't contact him, and sending a letter to the Commonwealth Office in London to send to his vice president, who is let me not say anything. Okay. And the situation of preventing Alhaji Bukar Charima from becoming the prime minister to replace Tafawa Balewa,
who had been killed.
To me, it's inexplicable.
You mean the then ceremonial president prevented the
because the ministers met. The ministers met after they managed to stop the coup with Insecurity and co.
Right.
They met and they were to decide who's going to be next prime minister. The Northern People's Congress.
Yes.
Were the majority, and they were having the prime minister. So naturally, you would have expected. There was no need to call in General Rossi at all.
So tell us what happened.
Then they called him in. He should have refused, but that's past tense now. But he decided to take it on. And see, that time, it gave many of us that motivation to say that once the followers or the citizens of Nigeria complain about something, we can take over at any time. Okay. And that has led to a series of coups. And because of that motivation, they did not go there. I visited some countries in Latin America, Brazil, Uruguay, and co., where the military had been in power. I saw what those guys did there. You can't compare to what was done in Nigeria.
In terms of?
Yes, in terms of infrastructure and so on. Therefore, you then ask yourself, what did they do? And if Gowon at his young age said that he had plenty of money, doesn't know what to do with it, that is a country that has large strategic vision. Clearly. And I was surprised that he, as a military officer, who is supposed to be trained in strategy, could make such a statement. But the one mistake he made is this. Yes, he divided Nigeria into 12 states at that time. It did not devolve the powers of a federation. Because there's one word that is very, very important in a federation, subsidiarity. That's what the Europeans call it. Subsidiarity is very important. Or what is it? Again, simple. If a particular level of government can do something,
yes,
you don't need to give it to a higher level to do now, which is what's happening in Nigeria today. And because of that, the governors who are kleptocrats are hiding under the federal government. So everybody's talking about corruption in the federal government, corruption in the federal government. The states are worse. Okay. And the state government believe that nobody can do anything to them. And that's what's happening. All right. So you don't have a situation. And what has happened also is this, is that what they do is that they give the security agencies, apart from their budget, nobody knows how much is spent on security in this country. Nobody. Because the governors too contribute millions of naira every month to the agencies. So all the agencies, DHS, everybody, they give them plenty of money, apart from the one that is budgeted for. Okay. All right. And there are some that are hidden that we don't even know about. So, therefore, the case of coup or no coup in the Nigerian sense, any military officer in the right senses will know that it doesn't work and doesn't solve problems because it's temporary in nature. And that's the mistakes those boys in other West African countries like Mali and co, have been making. The only person who really understood that is Absalami Abubakar. Within 11 months, he handed over because he knew that he couldn't solve the problem of Nigeria. And about 1990 constitution, they are blaming him for that. But I'm sure, and I'm told, he called some people to look at those papers.
Right.
But what was happening in the case of Nigeria was that, let them just go. Yes, the constitution is okay. Let them just go. Once they go, we politicians, we know how to what to do. Till today, they have not been able to. You see. And that's what I was talking about, the selfishness of the human being and the greed. Till today, they have not been able to do it. And you could see the reluctance of every president that has come since 1999, right from the Obasanjo to date. They don't want to touch that constitution. They want the status quo to remain. Why? Because of the power that it gives them and the greed and selfishness. Period.
Interesting. So that was why you left the military when you were still 50.
But in the case of that one, because I was not, I just described why coups are not necessary. So why should I join? Except if for personal something, I want to become a minister or a governor of a state and things. I didn't thought even gonna idea how much more of anybody to ask me.
Interesting. Thank you so much, General, for a very exciting conversation today. Thank you for your contributions and thank you for your service to the country. Thank you for being a patriot while in service in the military and even outside. One last question, and then hopefully we do it quickly. So what do you do now? You are 80, you left the army like 30 years ago. So how do you engage yourself?
I had in mind, in my travel, I'm lucky I've been to about 61 countries of this world. And any country I go, I try to look at the plight of Africans and people of African descent.
Right.
And they're at the bottom, everywhere you go, of the economic ladder. Even in their own countries, they're at the bottom of the economic ladder. Even in Nigeria here, an Indian can come to Nigeria or Chinese in 6 months, he own a business and be doing well and employ Nigerians. And the Nigerians are more afraid of him than their own Nigerian who will do the same thing. Okay. Or sometimes they even kill the Nigerian business. But I was asking myself, is there not way people can come together and look at these issues and say we must find solutions to them, must find solutions to these challenges? So I said that maybe an NGO will be a way for me. But fortunately, the former president of United States, Jimmy Carter, came along in the 80s, late 80s, to tell Africans, too many conflicts which are also happening right now. We are going back to that. And say, why do you expect us to come from Europe to be helping to solve your problem? We Americans, we are quarreling with the Russians. Today, I've come with the Russians to come and talk to you Africans at Nigerian Institute of International Affairs. So why do you form think tanks like you have in America to do the similar thing we do? Study these conflicts, study their history, and see whether I can find solutions to them. So we decided to do that. Okay. And then we started. When it came to money, it became Ijaore. People will take money, will not do the job. And so on. And I tried to get into business too. But again, if you want to do business and you are not ready to throw water in front, as they say in Yoruba land, you are not going to get any contract or any business. But I wanted to do business, not because I wanted to be rich. I was looking for money to be able to run the NGO. Okay. But after one trial, I just gave up. That business side is not for me. So I decided to stick to the NGO. But it had been tough, very tough, because I made up my mind that I was not going to beg money from foreign agency or things like that to be able to run the NGO. But I'm so lucky today that the pension I get from the army is so good, and I can take part of it. The only problem is that as I get older, I get too many medical conditions, and the charges, the doctors are not reducing the charges to make me be able to work. But I'm so lucky with the pension I'm getting. So I can use part of this to run the NGO.
Fund your NGO.
But that's
things that are important to you.
That's the story.
Interesting.
I'm so lucky.
I must say this, you are a very worthy example of a patriotic Nigerian, and a very worthy example of a Nigerian military general. Thank you so much for your service, thank you for your patriotism, and thank you for coming to Inside Sources.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that's another edition of Inside Sources this week. Like we always say, hashtag Nigeria will prevail. We believe it. That is why we are here. My name is Laolu Akande, and by the grace of God, I'll see you next week. Thank you.